I thought this was actually really bizarre because when you look at this, for a man who talks about balance a lot, and for a man who always gets it right, I think in terms of balance as well, I thought it was very odd that he decided to go for the back line that he did and the midfield that he did. So on their own, you sort of understand why he chose those three players in Bastoni, Kolarov, and D'Ambrosio. D'Ambrosio is a man who gives everything for Inter. Bastoni is the only real centre back that they've got at the moment because they're not playing Skriniar and Ranocchia. There's, obviously with moves and stuff, they're not really options at the moment. And so Kolarov has played in a back three before. So all of this on their own makes sense. But when you consider that they've just arrived at Inter, like Kolarov's just arrived at Inter, when you consider that the midfield has Brozovic and Eriksen, two players who don't really give you too much in the defensive phase. There isn't Gagliardini, who isn't the world's greatest player, sure, but he can at least offer a little bit more from a defensive approach. Then I think that it was a side that was too attacking in many ways. Perisic on the wing, young. It was a side that always was going to prioritize going forward and not offer you enough defensive balance. And I thought that was very strange to go with that, especially against a team that understands how to possess the ball so well, like Fiorentina, a team that made all the right decisions when it came to packing their midfield, ensuring control of that area, and leaving Inter absolutely unable to really maneuver as well and as beautifully and logically as their team has. I mean, the squad can move the ball well. And we saw that happen, obviously, when they scored 2 goals in 2 minutes. So we know that they can play well, but sometimes I just feel that the decisions made too many vertical points in a side that really doesn't know how to hold possession, doesn't really offer balance defensively. Very bizarre. But he had the substitutions, he had the experience and players who could come on and change everything.
Because you picked it apart as well, didn't you, Matteo, with what Mina was saying? There was a few positions that you questioned yourself when you saw that lineup.
I have 2 big problems with the lineup that Conte put out. And fortunately, we're not going to see that lineup probably ever again. Certainly not going to see it this upcoming weekend because there's wholesale changes throughout. But I want to talk about Alexander Kolarov, right? Because throughout his career, always known as a fullback that's much better going forward, a bit of a defensive liability, someone who struggled a lot of times with his positioning, with his one-on-one defending. And now they bring in Kolarov, who's in his mid-30s, who can't run enough in a Conte system to play his best position, which is left wing back. And by the way, I think that Kolarov at this stage of his career, the best thing he does is from the set piece, not in open play. But you're putting him as a center back. And by the way, I was on the commentary for the Serbia game in the UEFA Nations League where Kolarov once again was poor in this position. There's this whole thing now that, it's a back three. We can convert fullbacks to center back. Kolarov was at fault for the first goal. He's never been known for his defensive abilities. So you bring in the player who can't play his best position because he can't run anymore for what Conte wants from his wingbacks. That made no sense. Christian Eriksen, with all the midfielders around him, I don't care what you did at Tottenham. I don't care how good you were in the past. Right now, he's a shell of his best self, and we haven't seen any glimpses consistently that he's willing to play to the level that he was years ago, because this is a problem that went back to his last season at Tottenham, that he was so poor. And he's not going to start consistently with all the midfielders around him. I would have almost put Arturo Vidal as a center back. He can play that position. He played it for the Chilean national team. He's played it in the past. Put Milan Skriniar. Why are you selling Milan Skriniar? Because he doesn't fit in the back three, and Kolarov does? So Skriniar is being sold because he doesn't fit in the back three, but now Kolarov does. None of this makes any sense to me whatsoever.
All right. Mina, I saw your reaction when he said what he did about Christian Eriksen. Why did you react that way?
Well, listen, I think I agree. I think there's a lot of blame being put on Eriksen, where I think sometimes it's like, you know what you're getting when you buy Eriksen. It was interesting because when he was coming out of Ajax at the time, everyone was looking upon him as this great player, this one who really understands how to inject a lot of creativity. And when you think of his passing, his through balls, the assist that he's given in the Premier League, it's better than most players in that position in England at the time. But the point is when you get Eriksen, you have to provide full support for him. And that means he's the guy, he's the main one, and everyone rotates around him. You need strength, you need aerial ability, you need somebody who's a little bit more physical and robust, raiders who can go in and do something with the space that creates. You can't put him in that field, in that role, and then ask him to stop, adapt, and offer a defensive thing, because you look at Brozovic, he can't defend either. And then it just all becomes very hectic for me. So Eriksen never made sense.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.